Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Rinki. I'm the Chief Security Officer at Upwind Security. And it's my honor to have Lucas Moody here, who is the Chief Information Security Officer at Alteryx, and a very happy customer of Upwind, of course.
Very happy.
Well, before we get into more around Upwind, Lucas, I thought it would be really interesting for you to share a little bit about your career journey and kind of what you've seen in terms of transformations, whether it's cloud or AI, and kind of what you're seeing today.
Yeah, happy to. And thank you. It's funny because I'm in the presence of like internet royalty, and she's asking me the questions. I should be asking her. But to give you a sense of my career, my name's Lucas. I'm the SVP CISO at Alteryx. It's a company in data analytics. Been here for like 3 years, but I've been in cyber for 26. So that means I started my career in cyber back before Y2K. And so I started my career at Oracle. I was actually in product engineering, quickly transitioned into cyber more opportunistically. We didn't really have a cyber function. It was more kind of a sub-function of Eng. And one of our DNS servers were attacked. And so I spent some time recovering that. And I'm like, dude, this is cool. This is some fun stuff. And I never really looked back. And so I was at Oracle for about 7 years. This is the point at which Oracle decided to move me to Austin, Texas. Spent a few years out there, and then I finally decided to bring it back to California, which is where I started, and I joined KPMG. And so at KPMG, it was a really interesting time. Cyber was becoming more of a real function. And so I decided to go to the dark side, go into consulting, and actually help a bunch of companies build their programs. And so I was really lucky. I had customers like Salesforce.com, eBay, PayPal, Apple, VeriSign, Yahoo. I mean, just an amazing bunch of companies. Decided after a few years of doing that I was going to join one of them. So I went to eBay, PayPal. And that's where I think a lot of the fun began, because at eBay, PayPal, at the time, eBay, PayPal actually pushed more bandwidth online than any other company. This is pre-Amazon, Amazon was around, but it was very early days. And so yeah, we got to see some really cool and interesting stuff. We got to battle some really cool and interesting bad guys. And so I really cut my teeth in ops in a more profound way there for another, I think it was 6 years that I was there. And then from there, I jumped to a company called Intuit. Intuit's a TurboTaxMint.com, if you're not familiar. And got to do some really cool things. Actually, Rinki and I were there together. We got to battle fraudsters that were stealing identities online. We got to support this on-prem to cloud transformation. Because back in those days, you would actually go to Costco and buy a TurboTax CD to file your taxes. And so old school. But in either case, from there, I jumped to probably the most profound role that I ever had, or at least this transformed me in my career. There was a little old company called Palo Alto Networks. They just gone public. They're about $500 million revenue company, and they were looking for their first CISO. And I ended up meeting them at their EBC, and they're like, well, Lucas, would you be interested in coming on board? And so I was lucky enough to join Palo as their first CISO. Once again, playing bodyguard for a company that is a bodyguard for the web, not unlike Upwind is today. And so anyway, from there I went to Rubrik, Twitter, and then where I'm at today at Alteryx, which is a data analytics company. We're taken private about a year ago, but I've enjoyed every moment of my journey. In addition to being an operator, I'm also an investor, invest in a lot of cyber companies. So I've just been blessed with this amazing journey, but I will hand back to you.
Yeah, in addition to doing the CISO job again and again and again, you're also an active investor and advisor at Lockstep. You're seeing innovation every day, talking to hundreds of companies, and then you're talking to practitioners. Like, what are top 3 trends that you're excited about, or that scare you, but more on the innovation side that you're excited about that folks are finally adopting?
I mean, there's so much to be excited about right now. Obviously, and this goes without saying, and all of you have heard this a million times, but I'll say it, I guess, one more time. The AI revolution is real, and we're seeing it in many different ways. We're seeing it from the lens of kind of being on the receiving end of new and novel attacks. We're investing in, both Rinki and I are investing in categories that are being upended by AI. And so companies that are solving for old school security problems with the benefit of having AI as wind in their sails. And then, of course, we're all having to kind of duck, dodge, and maneuver around this idea of we need to enable our developers, we need to enable our product teams, we need to enable our workforce with modern tools, tech, but we need to do it in a guardrailed way. We need to do it in a risk-managed way. And so how do we do that? I think the jury's still out in a lot of those categories, but I think there's a couple verticals that I think are ripe for AI and AI disruption. Trust and safety, for example. Fraud, we're seeing a lot of benefit with AI. Ops, Rinki and I actually looked at a lot of company in the ops, kind of the agentic security ops space for many years, or for many months, I should say. And it was kind of, we kind of paused. We were waiting to jump in, but it's looking very exciting today. So there's a number of categories like that. Identity and data and the convergence of the two is really interesting. And then, of course, runtime, which is what we're here to talk about. What Upwind is doing with runtime in cloud is also another exciting category that I think is very investable, and we're seeing a lot of companies take advantage. So.
Yeah, talk a little bit more about runtime, right? Because I think you're one of the CISOs that has adopted that philosophy kind of earlier on, and it's kind of a new term that's come out. Like, how easy was it for you to kind of like do that, run that transformation and bring in new technology at Alteryx?
Well, I mean, it's like anytime there's a novel way to solve an old problem, there's a little bit of selling that has to happen, not just selling to the CISOs, but the CISO selling to their respective business. And so I think, there's always that, right? But I think on the plus side, I think the storyline makes a lot of sense to people, which is, if you think about it, this is how I sold it. If you think about it, like, deterministic systems are pretty easy to secure with planning up front. You architect the right stuff and you build for it, like CSPM, for example. And I think that's a great first start. But I think most problems are solved in runtime. If you look historically at any sort of business or any sort of like thing that's evolved over time, you start with building it up front, planning it, architecting it appropriately, and getting really good at your tooling. But you get the best benefits. Like if you look at like Formula One, for example, they built all these cars. It was all in the front end. It was all about the strength you can build into these cars. But really where you started to see like step order improvement is when they started building sensors into all the cars while they were driving. And that's where you get all the signals that enabled you to get to the right outcomes. And so that's the way I think about it. And that's the way we sold it. And of course, engineering hopped on board because we're now a customer. So.
No, I love that, and I love the analogy to F1. I think we're going to definitely use that and steal it at Upwind.
You can steal it, yeah.
Last question for you.
Yep.
As we're, I'm sure there's a lot of aspiring leaders here, a lot of aspiring CISOs, people that are going through transformations. You've gone through kind of AI transformation, cloud transformation, going through probably as we speak as well. What's advice like on how you handle that kind of transformation from a security perspective? How do you plug in and build the right partnerships with other executives? How do you talk about this from a security lens with the board?
Yeah, okay, there's a lot of parts to that. So at I think on the upfront, security, like any other organization, has a responsibility of engaging with and inspiring / influencing organizations that need to do the hard work on security, right? Security organization can throw problems over the wall, can go and call out what you need to start building, can set requirements for your engineering teams and whatnot. But I think ultimately the ability to influence is key. And so I think that's where I've always started as a CISO, going all the way back to my first CISO role at Palo. It was very much engaging with engineering, engaging with product, engaging with IT, the three core constituents, or the trinity, if you will, of organizations that need influence from security, and then building relationships. And then two, it's building context. A lot of these organizations have good intent. They want to get to the right outcomes, but sometimes getting to those outcomes requires a meandering path that are very expensive. And these organizations have other things that they didn't need to deliver on. So it's really around building context on risk, helping them to understand the why, and then, of course, painting the picture and building the narrative on what happens when you do this incorrectly. And so with a company like Palo, it was a little bit easier because I think inherently they understood that that security or a security breach in our case would have been an existential risk to the company, because who wants to buy a security product from a company that goes through something major like that? And so it was easier there. It's a lot harder when you're at an organization where you've got to kind of paint the picture in a 2 layers abstracted kind of way. So thinking about Alteryx, for example, we're a data analytics shop, so it makes sense that we build in security, but oftentimes we've really got to tell the story on what our customers or those that we're selling into are going to demand of us. And so that's why I think the ecosystem is a very powerful engine to drive like some of the ways that we convince others and sell others on security outcomes. So, and I didn't touch on your board stuff, but go ahead. No.
I lied. I said last question because I misread the timer, so I'm going to put you on the spot a little longer.
Yeah, put me on the spot.
Yeah, but finish with the board one.
Oh no, so at the board level is completely different. So I've now had to present to, I think I've had 5 boards that I kind of dotted line reported to, starting with Intuit, and then Palo, and then Rubrik, Twitter, and now at Alteryx. It's a very complicated endeavor. I think different boards are made up of different talent, different energy, different kind of backdrops, different experiences and such. At Palo, we had a board that was very like VC heavy. And being VC heavy, you'll know VCs are not the most technical folks in the world, but I mean, they're pretty technical. So we had a very technical board that was very deep on security with security investors. So those boardrooms were pretty complicated. I spent a lot of time building relationships, and I spent a lot of time really understanding what was meaningful to them before those meetings, right? And so I wouldn't be ambushed in the boardroom, because that's one of the worst feelings in the world. It's happened to me many times. And then going like to Alteryx, it's really at Alteryx, my engagement with the board is much more of an educational set of sessions. It's really kind of teaching what's important, helping to understand the context on investment, helping them to understand the things that we're not investing in yet and why that's okay. All those things I think are meaningful. So hopefully that answers your question.
No, that's super helpful. And like on that, a lot of times as CISOs, folks think that it's the hardest thing to manage the board or other executives. But a lot of times when we're going through like AI transformation, or even when I think about runtime, and I went through this myself, your team thinks you've heard a new buzzword, and then you're like trying to tell them to think about it. And sometimes you're like, actually, when you're going through a cloud security transformation, or you're thinking about something differently, you have to manage the team in a particular way and kind of upskill and do different things there.
Sure.
And we're kind of going through that too right now, right? With people kind of feeling threatened by AI as well. But when you're thinking about these new ways of driving, whether it's like runtime security or it's AI transformation, like how do you manage that with the team?
It's a great question. I think, first of all, this whole AI is going to take my job thing, I think is an absolute joke. AI can barely do anything well. I mean, it was the whole AI is going to take our job thing. Let's set that to the side for a minute. In terms of like bringing teams along, I think you're right. It's hard, because oftentimes what we're doing our best to do as practitioners and executives in the security space is we're trying to look around corners to some degree, right? We all have to invest in what's happening right this second, but we all have to also forward invest in where we think the markets are going. And that's the hard part. And so how do we sell the team on investments where it's oftentimes upstarts that are solving for it? And the products don't seem well baked. It's more vision than it is engineering and all the rest. And so I think it's about helping them to, one, understand, like it's not unlike selling the board, right? It's the board's a non-technical body. You've got a technical body, but they're kind of rooted in today and not tomorrow. So it's helping them to see why you're thinking that this is something that's going to come around the corner. For example, I don't know, like AI and AI enabling kind of, reducing the barriers of entry for bad guys to come in and attack companies, for example. It's reducing, it's like old school script kiddies are now powerful, teams of like agentic attackers, if you will. And so I think it's around just helping to build that context, helping them to see what it might look like if you lose that the Cold War on the weapons, the nuclear proliferation, that type of thing.
I love it. Okay, and one of the questions I've been dying to ask you is like, as you're looking at founders and new tech, you're a really early customer of Upwind, and something gave you confidence, and we'll get to Upwind in a second, but what do you look for in early founders and companies where you're like, you know what, I want to work with them?
In founders or the
Founders
products?
and the product, and like just thinking about Alteryx at one point was a public company, and it's taking a risk when you're going with a really early cyber company, and so kind of what draws you, how do you make the decisions to partner with early stage companies?
Yeah, so the investments I usually make are left of A, so usually pre-seed seed, and at pre-seed seed, it's like 99.9% founder conviction. It's, it's the quality of the founding team, it's their ability to execute, their attention to detail, their ability to engineer, their ability to inspire, their ability to storytell, their ability to hire great people and that type of thing. I mean, that's really early on, that's what you're looking for. Then you can kind of help shape where the product goes. I think that was my early draw to Upwind, was really this founding team and the team that assembled around them. Obviously, you're joining now, but this team's been around for some time. And so really understanding the vision, knowing we were looking around corners, we knew it's like any other kind of industry vertical that transforms. You start with staging up front. You start with really good planning. You start with, in cloud, the concept of CSPM. Right, getting posture really good on the upfront, well, that evolves into runtime. And so we knew that was coming. We were looking at a number of companies that were solving for it, and we believed in this team, and we ended up being right because the team is going gangbusters at this stage. So did I answer all of it?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, exactly. And are there any barriers you have to come across, as you're bringing in early stage companies into Alteryx, like as a customer, how do you get through kind of like the barriers through the legal process, compliance process as you're becoming a customer?
Oh, you all know this because I think there's a lot of go-to-market folks here, right? You raise your hands. How many go-to-market folks we got? Barely any? All right. Okay, well, you guys know. I mean, for us, any kind of early stager, if you want to do like early stage POCs and things like that, it's really tough to get across the line because there's a lot of security requirements and not, these early upstarts are not always solving for, selling into large enterprise first. And so what I like to do is I partner with these organizations and help them build that. When we're doing like early POCs, we'll do an early POC in a segmented off or a scoped environment where we're okay doing that, and then really help them uplift their security programs. And it's kind of it's a win-win. It's what we do in support of one another in this industry, right? If I'm selling into like a large financial, for example, they set a bunch of requirements on me. A lot of folks think that that's a bad thing. I love it because it helps me to uplift my security program. It helps me get budget. It helps me hire and do all those other things. And I think we try to do those same things for startups. Now, it's a little different, of course, because startups, most of their money is going to be going into engineering and product. But I mean, that's the type of partnership that I look for in an early startup, is somebody that's going to lean in and do that for me. And so does that cover it?
That's awesome. Okay. And some on parting thoughts here, like one thing we care about a lot at Upwind, which is one of the reasons I just joined a few months ago, is kind of their investment in people. We're people first business. We believe strongly in the community. And I know that community now is like, especially after the pandemic, folks are coming back together. Give me your thoughts on the community and like why it's so important to invest in the community. And I know you're a big believer in that as well. And that's why we come to these conferences, of course, to learn about the tech, but to build relationships with others as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, community is everything. So I think for me, I mentioned at my opening remarks, I've been in this business 26 years. I've made a lot of friends in those years, and those friends are very important in many different ways. Obviously, for us to bounce ideas off of, if I haven't seen something, friends in the business probably have. And that's a force multiplier for security practitioners. Practitioners that live in a silo really have a hard time executing on their jobs, in my opinion. But it goes beyond that because as we're thinking about, for example, like investing, I've got my lens on the world. I have an idea and I have a thought process around what I think is going to be really important, but I represent like a little mini sliver of the world, and oftentimes the problems that I'm seeing aren't the problems that everybody else is seeing. So I think we have this collective voice that starts to come out when we build around community, and so I've been doing that for some time, and for me, it's really important to get out and connect with the community. Events like this, like Rinki and I host stuff all the time, and so yeah, all those things are very important to me.
Thank you so much. Again, it was an honor. Lucas is again, for those of you that came to his end, he's a customer of Upwind. He's a CISO at Alteryx. I'm the CISO at Upwind. I just joined, was a former customer at Bill. I know we have to wrap up here, but we're going to be around, so come chat with us about Upwind, about runtime, anything. So thank you very much.
Yeah, we'd love to talk shop. Thank you.